believe it's streaming, but we'll find out tomorrow. So
We did our best.
we did our best. We got a recording of it here just as the backup, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sean, I want to throw this to you first, give the staff analysis on this application.
Sure, I'll try to give you a little bit of background. Give me a moment to do the packet here. So, demolition procedure is a little variation from the typical board. Whenever there's a COA, typically comes through design review board. In our particular ordinances, it has the demolition permit running through planning and zoning commission. So that is why you're seeing that here tonight. In our ordinances, there are 3 parameters. Not sure if they were introduced in the packet or not, but I can bring those up for your review really quickly. And you also should have gotten some feedback from MKSK on some questions that are related to anytime you see a demolition
Yep.
application. So let me find the ordinance first. And I discussed with our attorney today, who was not able to be present tonight. And he said, emphasize those 3 criteria, A, B, C, and then you can fold in some of those comments from the MKSK report that they have given you when doing some considerations for the demolition. Let me find that so I can pull it up on the screen. And you'll have to excuse me, I am not as handy as Teresa and able to do all the minutes and the recordings and have all access to this prior ahead of time, so I apologize.
Makes you appreciate her when she's gone, huh?
Oh my
Doesn't it?
gosh. Even when she's here, she's appreciated. So 118709, demolition of a structure. Now, thought I had that up, but we'll go ahead and plug this in. AV department will be with you in a moment. All right.
They have the applicant here.
So in cases where applicant applies for certificate of appropriateness to demolish a structure, the Planning and Zoning Commission or village manager shall grant the demolition and issuing a COA when at least one of the following conditions prevail. A, the structure contains no features of architectural and historical significance to the character of individual precinct with which it is located. There was a question by one of the board members earlier wanting to know the date in which the house was constructed. According to the Licking County Auditor, that was in 1930, just as a point of reference. B, there exists no reasonable economic use for the structure as it exists or as it might be restored, and that there exists no feasible and prudent alternative to demolition. And C, deterioration has progressed to the point where it is not economically feasible to restore the structure. So those are the 3 criteria that are outlined in the ordinance. MKSK was also able to offer you some other alternative thoughts that you can fold into some of the more critical pieces that probably granularly take place in those 3 sentences. So at that, I'll leave it at that, unless you have any further questions, or you can ask Trevor, who's available for questions as well.
Trevor, do you want to give your analysis on?
Basically, the questions I responded to, that, as Sean mentioned, the home was constructed in 1930 based on information on the Licking County Auditor's website. The property is within the urban neighborhood district of the city's design review districts, so that is something to keep in mind. The other question that was asked was regarding if parking could be constructed, like a parking lot can be constructed on this lot. And after reviewing the code, the property is zoned GCC1, which does allow for a variety of commercial uses, but nowhere does it allow for just a standalone parking lot on an individual parcel. However, on this property, The owner of this parcel also owns the one adjacent to it, which has the Bell store located on it. So presumably, the applicant could combine this property and, in the future, file an application to either expand the building or potentially expand and request additional or more parking be included as well. So that's just something that hasn't been included or hasn't been requested yet, but could come down the road.
And if I could pile on that, just from an emphasis, Chris from MKSK also gave some feedback, and he wanted to really emphasize those would all be separate permits, that they're not in conjunction with this particular application tonight. So I just want to emphasize that because Chris emphasized that in his working document. I think you all have that, so.
All right, is the applicant here tonight? Come on down. Can you give us a little background on the project and what your plan is for the parcel?
Absolutely. My name is J.P. Phillips with Campbell Oil Company from Massillon, Ohio. We purchased this parcel on an auction in January of '23. The idea was there's a parcel coming available next door to our business. We were still in construction at the time that we started to bid on it. And it was just about trying to secure to make sure no one else kind of swooped in, bottom line. We have no plans. We've talked about some other ideas over the time. I've had some conversations with Sean and some of the other people at the city. At this time, we have no plans. We actually filed for a zoning permit in, I believe it was the old system, OpenGov online. We had a zoning permit issued in April of '23 for demolition. We thought that meant we could go ahead. Our contractor showed up in December to contacted the city to disconnect the water and sewer, and that's when we found out about the COA. So it was kind of like, okay, let's catch up. So we've been preparing for this for a while. The building's been empty for over a year. Not entirely sure how long it was empty before it went up for auction. So at this point, we just want to clear the site, return it to grass, leave the driveway so there's some landscaping folks can get in there. But there is no plans for the site. We just want to kind of clean it up. At this point, the door's blown open, glass has been shattered. We just don't like the idea of next door to our store, let alone right in the center of town, having an abandoned property. So that's our intent.
Do anyone from the board have questions for the applicant?
I don't.
All right, so I'll kick this off. Questions that I have. So I know that you said you don't have any anticipated use at this time. You're not planning on renting the space, anything like that?
No, the
Okay.
utilities were disconnected almost 9 months ago now.
Okay, and your reason for demolition is what? Just ease of use or?
Just to eliminate a structure that has no,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, the current condition of the structure, do you know anything about the interior condition?
I know that it hasn't had gas or electric for over a year. I know
Okay.
that it's not in great shape on the inside when we took it over. We actually evaluated maybe making it a rental property, and it was determined the cost of making it livable was not great.
Okay. Do you have any evidence of the interior, anything like that, that you'd be able to show? Just examples of what we're looking at?
We could walk over there now and I could open the door and the smell alone would be enough to give you the indication.
Gotcha. For our staff, is there anything that's currently grandfathered on this property? Any special uses, any easements, variances that they currently have?
So basically, any non-conforming existing uses. The only thing that I can think of would be, it's not necessarily a non-conforming, but it is in a GCC 1 district, so houses, residential houses, if this structure were to be tore down, Trevor, correct me if I'm going wrong in any of this, and feel free to jump in if you prefer. Tearing down the house would no longer grandfather any non-conforming pieces that this house currently has.
Right.
So if it, throwing out hypotheticals, if it didn't meet lot size specifications, the house couldn't be constructed, or if it didn't meet square footage constructions. So after it's tore down, it could be hard to revert back to the existing
You lose them if they're
footprint.
grandfathered, yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, you would lose everything, but I didn't know if there was anything other than housing that they wouldn't be able to do in the future.
I mean, other than, any future use of the property would have to be compliant with the zoning designation at the time. So whether it's GCC 1 or something else, if it's rezoned between now and then, but yeah.
Okay. And then as far as notification, was there any feedback from neighbors contiguous with the property. I know the ones across the street, I didn't see the notifications in there. I know it's contiguous, but I didn't know if we sent anything to anyone that's across the street.
I will have to check, and Terry's not with us tonight, but I do not believe any type of public notice has to be given for a demolition of structure, according to our codified ordinance. I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying I don't believe in our codified ordinance there's any type of
Notice of
notification
Restriction.
for
Yeah.
demolition.
You need one for a COA, right?
You would, yeah. I know that, well, it said in the packet, I think that there were a few neighbors that were notified, but I know across the street, I don't think they were, because they're not contiguous.
I think it makes a list of all the contiguous neighbors, but I'm not sure that a notification
Okay.
would happen. I know with another application that went through the process. I don't believe that had to do a notification to the neighbors. There has to be
Okay.
a public notice for the meeting, for a COA, so.
Do we have a sign out in front?
No,
so.
I drove by there a couple times over the weekend. That's what I was looking for. I didn't see one.
Interesting.
We went through this in design review tonight, and there's a lot of frustration with our current 1187 is it chases its tail. And one reason you're seeing this, which is, as I mentioned earlier, a little odd, is because in the entire COA process, it always goes before the design review board, except for with
To
a,
remove the basement, the walls, the
Yes.
very foundation, the footer,
Return to grass.
because I know it said backfill of basement, but I wanted to make sure if this does go forward that, you know, footer, everything that's
Yeah,
down there will
you'll
be,
have All structural, everything will be removed.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna dig it all out.
okay. Trees on the property, I know there's at least one significant tree. The property next door had several significant trees that were removed and,
We went through that process. We're well aware of the city's requirements. We don't plan on touching anything.
okay.
Yeah. And I think there's a few small landscaping planting areas around the house they'll be affected, but nothing of significance that's in the yard.
Okay. Further questions from the board?
The only question I have is like it says something like they can't have architectural significance. Do we have any limitations on, like, I don't know at what point it would say it's historical. It's not 100 years old, but it doesn't seem to be from that house in that neighborhood that it would be like a historic district or something, but
so
do we have any limitations?
I did discuss this with Yaz only because it was a question arose from another board member. Because there is some vagueness in your particular ordinance, it allows a lot of latitude for you all to determine what you believe is historic or not historic. So
It doesn't seem that that would be on that street, but
it really is up for determination. Some people, it doesn't have a Victorian look to it. It's more of a ranch. In some cases, in certain areas, that could be deemed historic. If you look in other areas, in other areas, it may not. So
If you want to press it far enough, I mean, it's a good example of, I think, your 1950s, 60s modern contemporary style of structure. I know more people are going to look at Victorian and things like that, but I mean, it is a newer deal. An antique's only, what, 25 years old?
yeah.
So,
I just didn't know if we were, I'm not saying I'm against it, I'm just
I don't
saying I
think
was
you're
questioning if we
limited.
were limited, like if we have any restrictions that we had to think about.
like I said, the vagueness, I believe,
Okay.
lends to a variety of interpretations on what is historically significant. So I'm not a historian,
Okay.
classified or certified, but maybe in the future, there could probably be a process in which someone could go through. The city could establish that historical procedure to determine and deem necessary, a house, whether it having the qualifications of a historic, but at this point, we don't, so that lends
Okay.
itself to
Yep.
a
That makes
variety
sense.
of opinions.
Thank you.
You mentioned shattered glass. Have the windows been boarded up?
No.
How long have the windows been shattered?
I don't know. I just went by it on the way here, just to do an assessment of it. Again, it's not inside, we own the property, so we have landscapers mowing. We're gonna have to talk to the landscaper to find out if it was busted the last time they mowed the yard. But otherwise, there's no activity, it's an abandoned house.
It would be in risk of like squatters.
That's our.
That's probably what your worry is. That
And the
would be
other part
mine
is,
if I were.
I would probably be back in front of this board if we just boarded the house up in a historical area downtown, it's not a great aesthetic for the town, the community. We would prefer not to have a boarded house next door to our property. I know the neighbors probably wouldn't like that, so we want to just kind of clean it up and make it as clean, just green space. I know there was a lot of concern about the green space we eliminated with the new store. This would bring some more green space back,
For now.
for now.
It just seems interesting to me to purchase a property with the intent to tear down a home with no plan or intention of what you're gonna put on that property. It feels like, because it's GCC one, that there'd be some kind of extension of the service station on the corner. I mean, that's what it feels like.
If we did that, we would be cutting our nose off to spite our face simply because the traffic, as it loops around the store, that back access point was one of the best things we did because it allows customers to get around the site without going by the front doors. So we would not connect the building. I can tell you that for certain. It's my job to design the stores. We would not connect that. If anything, it would be something standalone. And again, we've had some ideas and some concepts, but we're looking through the code to find out what would fit. But I don't want to, we're not going
Yeah,
to conditionally on top of this, but yes. And if we did design something there, whether it would be a parking lot or something else, the green space requirements would be, obviously, we would meet all of those. And given the small size of the lot, we'd be very limited on what we could do there. So
Okay.
that's kind of what we're kind of considering right now.
No, that's fair. Just hearing that makes more sense. The way it was originally presented made it sound like you're buying a property, tearing down the house to have private green space preserved for the good of the area, which doesn't sound
skeptic
like
in you.
that's the case.
No, I understand that. That's what the immediate step, to Sean's point earlier, this is a standalone process.
Yeah.
So we would prefer to tear it down and then to do something with it. Financially, that makes more sense for our company. But we have to get through this step first, so then obviously we want to return it to green, so we don't have a big gaping hole there in the meantime. So we'll return it to a green space and then come back here if we decide to do something else with it and present
Sure.
that.
But it sounds like it was bought at auction with the intent to tear it down.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There was initial, obviously with the Intel development, there was like, hey, maybe this could be a rental house. Once we get in and assess the condition, it was like, I don't think this is something we want to get into.
Okay.
What's the cost of the tear down project, just out of curiosity?
Usually those run, depending on how big the basement is, as Ryan brought up, usually it could be about $20,000.
Okay.
And then maybe a little bit more if we're going to backfill and then do the landscaping.
Because I'm just weighing out, okay, no feasible upgrade versus tear down, that seems.
The
obviously
estimated
that's lower.
cost here, it says 12,000.
So that's obviously lower than it would
That's for
probably
the
cost to
demo
fix it,
itself
fix
and
it
then the
up, so,
landscaping and everything else, yeah.
I don't know, and I guess, in my mind, it probably qualifies under the second provision of item number B, no feasible upgrades. Well, can you read C4, section C for us again?
Sure.
I want to see, my laptop ran out of batteries, so.
No, you're
I have
fine.
no
That's
code
fine.
in front of me now.
Just to help out. So, let me find it here. There we go. You were looking for C, correct?
Yeah,
Deterioration has progressed to the point where it is not economically feasible to restore the structure. So whenever planning and zoning prior to you all, it went before DRB, they would ask, what is economical? And I then go back to, it's really up for a fair amount of
Subjective.
interpretation. Yeah, as Kristen said, it's subjective. So same thing with B. A lot of these are subjective. So really it comes down to a determination of what is and what isn't in your mind.
yeah.
That doesn't help you and it doesn't help the applicant. It just is what it is. But I would say that previous demolitions that prior to coming through here, they were placed with conditions. I know there was another question about conditions, can they be put on it as far as what the end product you would like to see? And I only bring it up because I think there was a reference to leaving the existing driveway. And other applications that have come before it, that could be a conversation, and it may also be a conversation where you want the entirety of it to be taken back to turf. So that's really another piece that you can determine, and you can decide what is your preference, and you feel comfortable with as you move forward. If you have it demoed, if you don't have it demoed, whatever your preference is, you can mix and match, so.
Do we have a record with the city of the last time that it was inhabited?
We could find out from a water bill standpoint. If I had to guess, it was probably 6 months after the sale at auction. Is that sound about right?
Yeah, I believe the gentleman passed away.
Yes.
Well, during our construction, so we built from August to December, and it was sometime during that he passed away and went up for auction then. That would have been fall of '22.
So what you're thinking, your game plan is to try to do another business or a separate business
Something,
possibly
yeah,
there?
something.
Okay.
We had a lot of plans, and I'm not gonna, I'm resisting bringing any of them up lest we go down a rabbit hole. We had a lot of options. Some of them obviously they don't fit inside the current code. So we're kind of assessing where that goes. There's some other possibilities, but at this point, today, I can tell you with absolute certainty that we do not have any immediate plans for that site, other than we no longer want to have an abandoned building behind our store.
So, and I get that, and I give great deference to a property owner's right to be able to do what they want with the property. I think maybe I can speak for some of the sentiment on the board is we're worried that it turns into a parking lot. Could there be a condition, or would you have a problem with us making a condition that you don't combine the parcels?
I don't think that'd be a problem at all.
Okay.
We'd be absolutely fine with that.
Okay,
So then whatever, just to make sure I'm clear, then whatever we would propose to do on that parcel would
a
have to be
standalone project,
Yeah,
right,
absolutely. Yes.
right. It would basically eliminate the risk of you being able to combine them and
Yes,
build a
and
parking
I
lot.
respect that, absolutely. And we weren't planning on this during our design. If you go out there, you know the
Yeah, yeah,
our
yeah.
store drops
It's-
off. It
I
would-
see that too.
So, yeah, we're fine with that condition.
If I may, that makes me very nervous from a legal standpoint.
Yeah.
And I'm not a bar certified lawyer by any means, but that limiting somebody's ability to combine any property with another property based on a condition of a demolition seems like a very quick way to a legal matter.
Probably right.
We may inadvertently tie our own hands down the road too.
I do think it makes
That's something we
sense to
don't
have
want.
like conditional that the driveway.
Street. It allows them to get off the street. That was our intent, was to just give some room to get them off so they're not blocking traffic with the bank or going to the park. If that's a problem, it's not an issue. I just want to bring that up.
Yeah, 15 to 20 feet is not gonna be enough to pull a truck and a trailer
I'd
on
rather
there.
tear it out.
I know I mow commercially and my trailer's 16 feet. So most commercial setups are gonna be, 20, 25 feet, something like that. I wouldn't be in favor of a driveway either. Maybe there's an argument for the curb cut and the approach, but
So the curb cut to remain and then clear
the
everything from
curb cut,
inside the right,
yeah,
outside the right of
and the
way.
approach.
Absolutely.
If I was gonna do it, obviously the sidewalk is gonna stay. But I would not be in favor of a driveway. Ultimately, I'm not really in favor of the demolition. I mean, I don't think it adds to the area. I think it subtracts viable housing, at a time where we have a housing shortage. I think it's gonna, as much as I don't wanna see a vacant building downtown either, I don't know that this really adds to our downtown, the neighbors, the look and feel of the overall neighborhood. Originally that was designed to be housing. Next to it, where the Bell store is now was also housing that was torn down.
Fair enough. Ben, did you have any thoughts that you wanted to share before?
I have thoughts.
Okay.
I hate seeing trees go away, I hate seeing homes go away. Especially in the downtown space, and that's what makes it hard. It's difficult because when you have a $12,000 fee to tear down a structure that is as economical as you can get relative to any renovation that you can do inside any kind of home. So, I don't know, economic feasibility for restoration is kind of negated by the fact that the demolition is so inexpensive. So I don't know if that's even an argument that you can say you can weight one way or the other. And economic feasibility has a different connotation to everybody, depending upon what their station is. Architecture and historical significance, it said the home was built in 1930. That makes it just shy of 100 years old. It may not have the historical facade, like Sean was saying, you would say from a Victorian standpoint, but in no means does it detract from the neighborhood. It's almost a half an acre in the downtown space. It does fall within the GCC 1 district, so I don't think there's any illusions that if it goes away, housing is going to come back. I think there's an understanding that, it's zoned commercial, it's going to be commercial in some capacity. And, of course, property rights weigh pretty heavily with respect to that, too. It feels like it was purchased with the intent to demolish. It feels like there was some, I'm not sure miscommunication with respect to the timing of the process. If you have somebody out here in December, then you couldn't go through with it, so I understand that, because we could be having this conversation 5, 6, or, a year ago. So yeah, it makes it difficult to consider. But yeah, am I in favor of it? No, I don't like the idea of tearing down the house. But I don't know if I feel like there's a way to say that you can't do it. If it's deteriorating now and you have no intent to renovate it because of the economic cost to tear it down, I feel like it's gonna sit there until it gets to the point where it has to be torn down anyway, right? Because you don't have any other intent of use for the structure.
That's correct.
Right? So,
It looks like you bought it as a hedge in case you needed the space when you built the gas station. Is that,
Yeah, I could see that.
and you didn't know?
Our plan for the station was already done, and we were underway with construction. The property became available, and as Mr. Lee just mentioned, it's its own commercial, so it was the idea of, it's a hedge to prevent somebody else, a competitor, going right next door to us or something in
Right.
that regard. And again, we started to assess options, and I respect the idea that getting rid of homes is a bad idea. I will submit, this was bought at an auction online. It was not
sight unseen.
correct. Yeah, we were well aware of what we were getting into, and we were fairly surprised that we were able to get it, to be honest.
Well, this further reinforces the need to look at the zoning code. I'm sure you would expect much more than that to rehab it on the inside, so.
Get this done. Here, come on down.
Todd Houston, Benedict, 104 Benedict Drive. This is, I was here when the Bell store was here getting talked about, and I brought up in motion about, this is a historic district. And what gets put in a historic district, and with the design and review that we had put in place, I really felt that protecting a historic district was important. And the Bell store, I went there, it's great that it's there, but not just this board, but the design review board's gonna have some real hard decisions to make in regards to protecting the historic district. And some of them might not be real popular, but I really hate to see a house go. So, thanks.
Kind of a,
Trevor, are you pulling
it's
it
kind of a
up?
gray area with that,
I could try.
especially right now.
Which map, which map you look at?
Yeah.
Well, it's also GCC one, and GCC one extends all the way down to Maple. And so, it's bordered by Maple and Williams. And then it goes all the way down to, Jersey and Williams. GCC one in that downtown space is pretty large.
But there's a historic overlay there.
That's what I wanted to define,
Not yet, right?
No, I mean, we've talked about a historic overlay a lot, but there is not.
right?
That's what we need, that's why we need.
Design review board, historic
There's an urban, what was it? Urban neighborhood district, I believe is what it is within a design overlay district. However, it's not with any sort of historic designation. It's within the urban neighborhood district of the design guidelines.
There it is. Ooh, it might be.
No, the purple is the urban
Do you
neighborhood.
have one public?
And this is the necessity of the code needing to catch up to today.
I know, it's.
There's been a lot of talk about the design overlay, and theoretically, if that got passed, we could get even a cooler structure there someday, building there.
One parcel out.
The nice thing is, though-
Protecting the downtown district, the historic, I mean, like certain cities like Worthington are very strict about their historic, they do a lot to protect it. And I would hope that we could kind of go in that general direction.
The difficulty is property rights and the subjectivity of aesthetics. That's what it boils down to. It's difficult to define, so it's open to a lot of gray space, and if I'm not wrong, There's a number of items that default to property owners because of that, when you talk about gray space.
It's something that needs to be done when we do our updates, the historical overlay, but right now, I think our code is ambiguous enough, and it's ambiguous in our favor to be able to make these decisions.
Do we have any other public comment? Come on down. Sorry, did you want to make a?
I let them go first, and then I only was gonna add something.
You know, Connie?
Hi, I'm Connie Ryan. I live on Edwards Road and born and raised here. And no offense to the gentleman here, but we were all very upset when the Bell store went in to begin with. Because we wanted, and part of the Historical Society, we want to keep the downtown as historic things, or looking more towards businesses versus keeping green space in our downtown area. So if they tear it down, what's to say they can't keep going and going and going? And now we're being swallowed up, and there's no historical area left for, and played on that street right across from where you're talking about tearing it down. I think we need to keep as much residential as we can. My 2 cents.
Thank you, Connie.
Come on down.
My name is Mike, live at 401 Buena Vista. I just have a question. If the building was demolished and went back down to grass,
Can you address the board if you don't mind?
if the building was demolished and it got changed back to grass, right, you're saying you're gonna demolish it all, what's not to say that we don't reacquire the property and turn it into a green space? Could that be done? Or, I mean, if they don't have no plans and the city has, or the citizens have better plans for it, he's gonna raise the property and then leave us with the parking lot. So, it doesn't sound like much has gotten resolved today with everything. And from my takeaways is, there's a property, an owner that wants to get rid of it because it's in shambles, which doesn't benefit the community either. I understand that. The longer that deteriorates, the worse it's gonna be for the downtown area. So somewhat demolishing it makes a lot of sense in order to just stop the decay. And then why not have conversations later about what we can do about the property to benefit the town? So,
Thank you. Any other public comment? Going once, going twice. Okay, close public comment. Sean, we'll come back, circle back to you here for some final thoughts.
Sure, I was just gonna give some clarity on some discussion items that had been presented. One was the deterioration. I do wanna reference that we do have and it was recently adopted, an international property maintenance code, so I'm not saying one way or the other from a destruction or demolition standpoint. What I am saying is, aside from that, we do now have an international property maintenance code, which would prevent allowing this structure or any structure, and I'm sure we can all point to some that are downtown that are
It
gonna
gives
get-
us the interior capabilities for
Right, so
enforcement.
from an exterior component, if it is the concern that it would deteriorate on the exterior, the city has other mechanisms in place that would prohibit that through the International Property Maintenance Code that was adopted last October. So I do want to highlight that, not only for this property, but from conversations of other properties that are in the area. Those are enforceable, actionable items that can be brought up. So I want to bring that up. And then somebody had mentioned Worthington, something that we can adopt firmly. Like I said, our code is rather vague, but something that Worthington does do, to Mr. Lee's point, is prior to demolition, correct me if I go wrong here, Trevor, because this was from Chris at MKSK. That's you all.
You have proxy.
Proxy. I believe in Worthington, prior to any demolition permit being approved, there has to be a site, long-term plan presented. Now, we don't have that in our code, so I'm just referencing it because Worthington got brought up. That's something that's probably gonna be talked about a little bit later on, so, oh, my time's up. There you go. So that's all I got.
Okay. I like that point. And after we finish this, maybe we circle back with a few code update.
Make sure that you're okay here. And I only say that from a reference that
Yeah.
Trevor just threw out there. where you're
I
at with this could be another conversation from anything else that's in the GCC one area.
I agree, because the argument then becomes, we bought property, we can't afford to keep it up, we wanna turn it into a lot. So you're setting precedent.
And maybe this is a good use for that property, maybe it's not. I'm just saying that there could be precedent that use later on.
It's zone GCC1, that's the thing.
A vote no today stops, or leaves options open for later. And it doesn't stop them from redeveloping it, doesn't stop it from becoming a city park. I laughed about that earlier. If it's not something you wanna take care of, you could always donate it to us, but, you know. In terms of procuring land, I know where we are as a city, and it's tough to procure land right now, so I'd say that option's probably not viable. So,
Oh, that's a good point. We'd probably get approved if you did that. All right. Ben, do you want to, I guess I could make a motion. Does anyone want to make the motion?
Well, if the motion is in the affirmative to
Let's make that
approve-
affirmative motion.
do you have
and then we can vote on
conditions?
it.
Yeah,
Yes.
Make the motion the affirmative with, and then we can talk, I think well, go ahead, let's talk about conditions. We want the driveway completely removed. I think that's one. Does anybody have any other conditions? Just if, in a motion for the affirmative.
Complete foundation down to the footer is removed.
That would be required, would it, Sean, or no? Like, I don't know what our,
You can really give like I said, this one has a pretty broad net that's
Okay,
associated
let's
with
put
it.
There was
that-
some
that's it.
interpretation in there, so I would wanna see
His plan calls for it.
completely removed.
put that language in there, I like
And
it.
any topsoil that comes on, I'd like to see that mounded because there will be settling. So I'd like to see a crown created to help with water mitigation and settling.
And I'm gonna go back from what I'm hearing, driveway removed to the sidewalk, or did I hear that wrong?
Yeah, that's what we
That is
said.
accurate, okay.
Yep.
And then we'll have all foundations.
Yeah, removal of all foundation complete.
Any
removal.
cisterns that they may find in that particular area, all,
demolition,
That was all dependent on tonight.
sidewalk must be maintained
Yeah.
in a good working condition. If at any point it's damaged during demolition, it needs to be repaired. It needs to be passable.
And this is probably already in our city ordinance, but any mud in the area, since it decides to rain every day now.
Windows need to be boarded up windows need to be boarded up ASAP, and the structure needs to be secured ASAP. If it's not already. Regardless of when the demolition is going to take place. Are you waiting? I got more.
I'm
Okay.
writing them down.
All waste materials should be removed in a manner that prevents injury or damage to persons adjoining properties and public right-of-way.
Say that again.
All waste materials should be removed in a manner which prevents injury or damage to persons adjoining properties and public right-of-way. Any work done in the right-of-way should require a right-of-way permit. Work should be scheduled when dust from the demolition can be controlled. Use water as a means necessary to mitigate that dust.
This comes from the Westerville plan,
Worthington.
Worthington, yeah.
Do we have a current requirement for a right-of-way permit?
And I don't know that there's gonna be any work done in the right of way, so it probably would alleviate the applicant from requesting one.
So we wouldn't necessarily need a condition for that, because if he was gonna do work in the right of way, he'd have to have one anyway.
It depends on where the utilities are capped, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good blanket, you can put it in there, as a requirement. It would be required in most cases anyhow, but doesn't hurt.
I would say water service, capped, at the end of the water pipe to prevent contamination of the system.
If I could chime in on that, if we're gonna go
Sure.
into the water and sewer, I would just make a recommendation that all city utilities are inspected and approved by our
Yeah.
utility public works director for his authorized designee to make sure that it's sufficient with what they request. If that's okay.
Yep.
That kind of covers a nice blanket of things.
So,
Well, that's on them, so.
can I go, I wanna go, I mean, I know we can restate all the code,
Codified
but
here.
Well,
Yeah, these are.
if you notice anything about our code, you think we do, and then we go and turn to that page. And then
All right, it's better
magically
safe than
not
sorry,
there.
okay.
We wanna be
I
specific.
don't
Alright,
mind
the
putting it in
conditions.
there as a
Okay.
condition, just because
Alright.
we ran into something today with engineering as it relates to a water valve that was a specification, and we thought it was in the code, but it was referenced in another area that didn't always land where it was supposed to, so if you call it out here, it's pretty cut and dry.
The fact that it is so vague and there isn't anything listing this in here, I mean, the job that we have is to protect person.
yeah, okay.
You know,
No,
people, personal property, city property, and so if it doesn't apply, it doesn't apply, but at least we've made it known that it is explicit and it is required.
All right, you got any more, my friend?
I think that's it. Could we assign a timeline
From demolition. You
to have
can-
it completed?
I think we should, probably.
I'm only asking because the alternative is to leave aborted.
I think a COA does expire after a certain amount of time. Let me pull that up.
That's true.
We did a conditional time frame with the laydown site and the cleanup of that when they moved out of there. It's similar at this point. I'd say it's got 90 days.
Well,
I like that. I like the idea of maybe putting a 6-month timetable on it. My question always comes back to how we manage these conditions where we put timetables on. In the past, prior to you on staff here, it seems like we didn't have any mechanism for managing the timelines of these conditional things. Do we have a system or a way to track and enforce these things? Because there's no point in doing one or potentially less reason to do one if we don't have the capacity to force it.
I think it's done from just a general record of when
So if we
when it's
needed to go,
approved.
if we needed it, we could just go back to that, basically.
Go back to the minutes when it was
Might,
approved.
might be something to think about too, future, like what, if there is best practices for managing that stuff, but, okay.
Worthington seems to know what they're doing.
We'll get there. Don't get me started. Okay. Ben, I'm back to you. Are you good with your?
I'm done.
You're still going. Okay, you're done. Did any of our members have any discussion on some of the proposed conditions? Or
Nope, mine are in there.
you like the conditions? Okay. So I will make a motion to pass this application
Do we have
under
some-
118709 B or C. I guess we don't need to select one of those, but on the condition that
With
and
the
I'll
conditions as written.
With the conditions as discussed,
Yeah.
sidewalks repaired, no tree removal, driveway removed, the sidewalk, entire property back to turf, mounded topsoil, subsurface construction material completely removed, structure secured as soon as possible, waste materials removed, any work done in the right-of-way should get a right-of-way work permit, all city utilities shut-offs be approved by service department, and dust removal. Ben, can you give me the language on the dust again?
Yep, and then I have one piece to add, not an additional. not an additional condition. All waste materials should be removed in a manner which prevents injury or damage to persons. No, you're talking about dust. Schedule work when the dust from the demolition can be controlled, and if necessary, should use water as a means to control the movement of dust.
Got it. That's on
We
the
get plenty
record.
of
Add that.
I
Those
have
are
a
on the,
motion by Jesse with all the,
Maine?
Oh, yeah.
Just, I don't think there's a 36 North Main, but it sounds like within 6 months, there might not be if there was one. So, I just, everything else
fantastic
is,
call out.
everything else is pointed to North Oregon, except the application and the title. So, for the record, we're talking about 36.
and the application.
Yeah, yeah,
I think that's good.
okay, good.
So I've got a motion by Jesse with all the provisions stated by Mr. Koppel and Mr. Lee. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call.
All right. Gotta go in order here. Hold on one second. Teresa's got all this laid out. She usually handles this, so bear with me. Kristen Hurst,
Yes.
Jesse Koppel,
Yes.
Ryan Green,
No.
Ben Lee,
Yes.
approved. Go.
All right, we've got one winner. Let's see what we got. Who do we have up next? Item number 6.
I'm going to outline the process, and I would ask for a brief recess. Before
What's
we
that?
go, if you want to outline the process to the applicant.
For the demo,
Yeah, just, yep.
just connect with the city, yeah, Terry, and then, he should be able to obviously now have a COA, which is a requirement prior to the demolition, so now that we have that, we can proceed, connect with probably our utilities department and, coordinate that, and then just make sure all the provisions that are set forth, if you're scrambling as quickly as I was, but you may wanna wait till Teresa gets back so she can transcribe all of this prior to demolition, I don't blame you. That would be my recommendation, and go from there, so, all right.
All right, we've had a request for a brief recess, so I will acquiesce to that, and let's take 2 minutes real quick.
All right. Do we have to make a motion for that?
Well, they're throwing curveballs at me while Teresa's not here. I've
Yep.
never had the recess situation. I don't think we have to vote on a brief recess, only for executive session, so, yeah.
You gonna use the bathroom or what?
Is that a normal thing?
The recess?
Yeah.
Not normally. Not sure why. Maybe you had to use the restroom. Yeah, we gotta get this one tightened up, because I can see where,
That can be a tidal wave coming.
yeah, because then,
How do we fix people's
so that's the design review board, so, oh, the painting, yeah, so our
Something else I
provisions,
just noticed was white, like, on
somebody else painted something again, right now?
the, more than, well, maybe I just hadn't noticed it.
So they can paint over top of paint, but they can't paint over top of brick anymore. Cease that unless it goes before the board. Before it was the Wild Wild West. If we were to glare on the windows, dude, he'd sleep in the wheel. What do we think about John? Sorry, what? What were your thoughts on some of the wares?
I have many thoughts. Most of them I probably shouldn't express, but
Okay, until you have a few drinks.
Things
could have been executed better.
Yeah.
Yeah, the letter of the law was not applied.
No, it was like spit in a handshake.
It was, yeah, the process was not there. Oh my God.
Villa that one guy lived in, like, always had a mess. It looks like they're redoing
Bentley,
it.
they are. Yeah, they went through the design review process, submitted.
Are they, is that guy out, or is it somebody
Yeah,
else there?
Yeah,
Okay.
somebody else bought it.
Okay.
So, yeah, so they're gone, and that went through the design review
Good.
process.
The historic place.
Yeah, just everything wasn't compliant, like Joe's shed.
I've been trying to document stuff like that. No, I know.
It's gotta get better. So, yeah, this one, I think once we change the ordinance, it'll supersede a precedent. Because my only concern would be, okay, then this guy.
Right.
You
Yep.
know, and then these two. These two properties right here were bought by the same company.
It's a big commercial as well.
They are, and so, you know, there could be these
Yeah, and I've been trying to
It's the
understand.
same company, they've got them for rent. Let's say they
Yeah,
got
and I've been
figure out
marking down,
their-
it's just kind of balancing, I could put everything back.
Put something-
Like single handicap.
Worthington,
So, yeah.
they have that
I've been
issue.
marking, like documenting it, and we've been working on this.
They would buy multiple houses, tear them all down,
Ready
like
to
a
go.
big gargantuan house.
It should never have been extended that long.
Historical character of the area. Yeah, from a size standpoint, or they were tearing it down, commercial structure there, which, commercial structure is not necessarily bad, it has to be in the right area.
Where's my gavel?
Is it the drawer over there?
What are you doing? You don't have a light.
All right, let's go ahead and
Traffic study, yeah.
call to order again, wrap up this recess and get back to work here. We are on item number 6, application 3-26-5, Benedict Drive map amendment. And again, I will kick it to staff for the staff analysis to start off with.
I'm not gonna have much to go through here, it's very similar, so I'll do Trevor. He put together the staff report on this particular one, but I didn't see too many alterations from the prior application that was submitted, other than what he referenced. So I'm babbling, I'll let Trevor take it.
No, so just to quickly provide a summary of this request, as a different zoning district than was originally being requested. That has no bearing on this application, but I did want to provide that background. The applicant has now submitted an application to take the suburban residential SR1 and urban residential UR1 zoning and replace them with SR2 zoning. All three zoning districts are single family. They all have very similar development criteria. This would simply allow, it would remove the split zoning on the parcels and allow the applicant a little flexibility to create one additional lot from the two that are currently existing. In the staff report, there was a map of the property. They're located along Benedict Drive, which is just north of 62, near Raccoon Creek Estates. Let's see.
Yeah, if you want to.
Here, just because I have a couple maps. I'll
Absolutely.
pull that up.
Got it?
So, the map on the screen illustrates the existing zoning. So the areas in blue that you see there are UR1, the urban residential zoning. The green is the SR1, suburban resident. Okay, this thing does this every time, drives me insane. So anyways, as we're going through this, so the applicant is requesting to rezone the entirety of these properties to SR2 zoning. Existing zoning, there are very minor proposed zoning district. One is that the minimum lot width and minimum lot area is slightly smaller in SR2 than SR1 and slightly bigger than UR1. So again, it's kind of in the middle of the two. The surrounding lots are kind of a mix of anywhere between 1/4 and up to 2.6 acres. The 2.6 acres and those larger parcels generally being located within Raccoon Creek Estates. And so the minimum lot requirements for the requested zoning district, the minimum lot area would be 13,500 square feet, which is just a little bit over a 1/4 of an acre. And the minimum lot width would be, that there's a typo in there, it's actually 85 feet, not 95 feet, which is similar to the other zoning districts in the area. And the minimum home size that could be constructed is 1,600 square feet for a single-story dwelling and 1,800 square feet for a two-story dwelling, which based on a quick review of the homes in the area is generally consistent around there. It's not greatly bigger or smaller than the other requirements in the area. And the conclusion is that if this is approved, there haven't been any identified impacts to the city's health, safety, or general welfare. The uses that are being requested are single family. That's generally what's on every lot around that are single family dwellings. And from that, I didn't identify any adverse impacts that would be generated from that request. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Can we get the minimum lot square footage for the three districts, SR1, UR1? I just want to have the comparison. Like I said,
Sure.
I apologize because my computer's down and I
SR
don't have
one's
that
like
code in front of me.
13.5, isn't it?
So SR1 is 20,000 square feet with a minimum lot width of 95 square feet, or not square feet, a minimum lot width of 95 feet.
95 feet.
And the UR zoning allows for a minimum of 9,500 square foot for minimum lot area and a minimum lot width of 70 feet.
What's
So
the
again,
SR2?
SR2.
And SR2 then is 13,500 square feet for the minimum lot
Heard
width.
somebody say it. That's
and-
what I was
and
thinking of.
85 feet for minimum lot width.
So in the SR2 is 16,000 to 18,000 square feet on a house, depending on if it's a single story or two story. SR1 is 1,700 to 2,000. You have front setbacks, rear setbacks that are similar, 30 versus 35, side setbacks 20. So you have a semi-similar product.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you for that analysis, Trevor. Let's bring the applicant up for a summary of what you got going for us.
I really don't know that there's much to add to what's been discussed. I will say that things is like SR1 is the highest housing standard in the village or city of Johnstown. I need to learn to say city. And SR2 is one step down, UR1 is an additional step down. This proposed is a blend.
The expectation we would have to replat if this were to be rezoned. These sites,
Correct. I don't know the exact process. The county would be involved with that, and I'm not familiar with Licking County's process. But generally, how that would go is the applicant would have to combine the two lots and then submit a request to basically split those into fully formalized platting of land where the city's accepting certain right of ways and things like that. But it is still a subdivision
Okay.
property.
Okay, yeah. Do any of the board members have any questions for the applicant?
I do not.
So I know I saw in there about a 35-foot setback. I know with SR2, we're at a 30-foot setback. I think I saw a note somewhere that there would be a 35-foot setback.
It's the last page.
Ryan, my intent is I'm indicating a 35-foot setback.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that'll make it even with the other properties that are in the neighborhood currently.
I believe that honors SR1.
Well, keep in mind, we can't, I mean, you can't.
Well, yeah, we're not, yeah, that's what makes this tricky.
Yeah.
We were talking about we were talking about a map change. We were talking about changing zoning. We're not necessarily talking about the actual builds of the property. That's what
Correct.
makes it tricky. Luckily, John's told us what it's gonna be. He didn't have to.
Trevor, I know I asked the question about spot zoning. Would you mind telling the board what you told me?
Sure.
I asked the question about spot zoning for this specifically because if you look on the zoning map, you've got UR1 and SR1, so you assume a space there with SR2 would look like spot zoning on a colorized zoning map. So,
Yes, and to Ben's question, I responded that in this case, I don't feel that this would be an example of spot zoning, and here's the rationale behind that. Generally, spot zoning is frowned upon or lawsuits come about whenever you have a use that's not appropriate that all of a sudden is dropped in the middle of uses that it's not compatible with. So for instance, if this was a request to insert GCC 1 or 2 into the middle of this neighborhood, yeah, I would definitely consider that some spot zoning because the predominant use going around there is single-family residential. So introducing commercial uses is not really an appropriate thing to do. Single-family home with a 30-foot setback or a single-family home with a 35-foot setback doesn't really generate any more noise or traffic or anything like that. So those are the types of things that we review when we're analyzing a rezoning is what are the overall impacts based on that zoning district. So uses, traffic, noise, things like that. And based on that, I don't consider this a spot zoning request, it's single-family zoning in a single-family neighborhood.
What you call it, transitional zoning or something?
It's more like split zoning.
You've got a higher
I'd say
use.
it's
Well,
three
split
different,
zoning generally
it's
is-
three different lots, but it's closer to split zoning than
Well,
it is, but.
There is split zoning on the lots currently, this is trying to remove that split
Right.
zoning.
Right.
Yeah, which has caused us problems in the rest of the city. We identified it in the comprehensive plan too, to get rid of that sort of thing.
So you're defining spot zoning as use.
Correct. Not just the letters on a map, but really the underlying uses and things like that that would be allowed. Correct.
Okay.
Additional questions for the applicant? Ryan, you have any?
I think we asked them all in the last one.
Ben, do you have any
This
additional
is,
questions?
this is mostly a decision over, you know, just the zoning.
I've got my notes on the criteria, but I'm interested to hear what the public has to say.
All right, well, let's bring the public in. Do we have any public comment on this? Come on down.
Would you like me to do the timer situation? or not?
I think we
Yeah, I'll just remind everybody that our rules, our meeting rules, we ask that public limit their request to 3 minutes. So once 3 minutes is up, we'll kind of give you the flag and try to wrap it up pretty quickly after that. We appreciate it.
My name's Maureen Kibaugh. I live at 406 Buena Vista, which is in the Raccoon Creek Estates. So don't worry, this was my research, so I know what I'm saying. My actual comments are very short.
That's what scared me, that whole
I know.
pack.
Well, you gotta have the background, right? So, my biggest concern, regardless of whether you approve it this way or another way, or however you develop the property, is a safety issue. And I know you said you didn't see any traffic issues, but I do. So if you look, I don't know if you can pull up what you guys have there, but this is the map. It's a 90-degree road curve here. It has no curbs, no sidewalks, and already has line of sight issues, okay? At the inside part of the curve, that was part one. Part two, there's a low spot on the interior of the curve where it ices up in the winter and puddles in the spring, which is right near a gas line. Cars sometimes park on the road, which they're entitled to do, but that especially impacts the line of sight when you go around the curve. So you're trying to avoid this car, somebody else is coming the other way, right? After the curve, once you get around to where this property would be, you know, the new homes would be, there's a hill. So you have a hill going up, which is a line of sight issue, especially for pedestrians, and you have the curve. So I have concerns in terms of, well, really, that's it. The combination of these items makes this section already limited and in sight and creates a safety issue for cars and pedestrians, and a lot of people walk these roads. This is a nice development that people walk around in. My concern is the addition of driveways will matter. Right now, and I don't know if you realize this, so where the front of the homes would be, the houses next to them, it's their backyard, not their front yard. So there's not any more driveways till you get up to the top of, almost the top of the hill right now. So that helps out. These homes would be closer to the curve. And so I think placement of driveways, whether they're shared or not, 2 would be better than 1, I would say. I would love to see 2 bigger houses rather than 3, but my real concern is how do you place these? Or if not, is there something else we have to do to make this a safe transition? Okay, did I make it in 3?
Yep, thank you.
You got 23 seconds if you want to keep going. Perfect.
Do we have any other public comments? Come on down.
All right. Always bring packets with me. Give Sean one.
Oh, good.
And actually, the safety issue is kind of a preview, so we can start with that, we'll end with that.
Thank you.
Getting to Houston, 104 Benedict Drive. On that map you see there on the front page. So it is respectful to my, very much differently than all the SR1 homes, which were majority built in the last 4 or 5 years. proposing this area to be SR2, to me, seems to be a little bit like, I know, Trevor, you didn't mention this, but it seems like micro district zoning to me. Because, and by allowing this, if you allow SR2 here, you're setting a precedence in regards to other folks who want to come in. If I want to go buy 5 properties in, new development area and build a 5,000 square foot house next to a bunch of 1,000 square foot homes, why wouldn't I be allowed to do that? It's all housing, right? So it would be kind of the reverse of this, where you've got, yes, it is all residential, but to me, it's a challenge in regards to setting precedents for future development. Well, my 3 minutes was up already. So I have a concern about it being SR2. Not only that, but for the poor map makers who have to try to fit 2 pixels into a zoning map to show this is SR2. The other reason is that, we're not against development, but whatever does get developed here, these are going to be newer homes, and they will be compared to the current homes in Raccoon Creek. We've got some realtors in the office here, John, Ryan. So, if some homes were built there, and John, you sell them, and those prices then become set precedents for folks in Raccoon Creek who want to sell their homes. So they're comps, it would be my understanding, right? Will those homes be comparable to the homes in Raccoon Creek? I know it's not in Raccoon Creek officially, but you're going to be compared to Raccoon Creek homes. So our homes now will be compared to the homes that you wish to build there, John. I don't know if that's really going to be beneficial. I think it's going to be more negative towards the residents of Raccoon Creek. I know we're not talking about housing right now, but you have to look at what is going to be proposed to be built there. I do think is part of the discussion. I know it's part of another zoning issue. I know we'll come back here. That's 3 minutes?
That is 3.
All right, all right. For your efficacy, the last page, we just talked about line of sight. I've got a page in there that shows, basically what you see is 2 dots that could be considered 2 cars. That distance is 250 feet. They cannot see each other over that crest, which is that red mark. So we've got line of sight issues there that need to be dealt with. All right.
Thank you.
Oh, and my recommendation is that we keep this SR1 if we're going to rezone areas, that we keep that strip SR1, is my recommendation. Thanks.
Any other public comment? Come on down.
Mike again. I also echo my neighbor Maureen's sentiment about line of sight problems. I have small kids, and there's a lot of families that walk around the neighborhood. That is a dangerous curve, especially if you're walking because there's no sidewalks on either side of the street. In driving, you do have a horrible line of sight problem. So just to echo my fellow community members, there's a lot of logistics to think about when it comes to planning out those properties and how you're going to get in and out of them.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Houston. I'm at 104 Benedict Drive. Todd, thanks for all that awesome information. I think what I just want to standpoint that that's just what happens here in Johnstown, but SR1 is going to ensure that 3 houses cannot be built there. The hope is that it's only 2 houses and that it's like for like. If any environment, like a Pulte or D.R. Horton or something like that, not that there's anything wrong with those, but that's not why we chose Raccoon Creek. We wanted the lot size, we wanted the feel, we wanted the custom builders, and it would be good to know the intent, like what are the elevations? What are the surfaces? What are the finishes? Because if we've got a house that's a $900,000 house sitting across from what could be a $400,000 house, that impacts our value significantly. And I don't think any of us want that. So I guess just SR1, if it's your house sitting across from that, are you going to appreciate somebody building something that's less than half of your value? And I'm talking as a realtor, I'm talking comps. And yes, it's personal because it's our homes. So that's where it's not just a zoning issue. It's not just hey, it's a residence. It's not just I'm building a house, just like there's houses there. It's more than that. It's personal. People invest there, and we're just trying to protect the safety of our environment and our home values. So, thank you.
One more question. It actually probably is better question for John, if I may. Would this development fall under Raccoon Creek Phase 1 or 2 estates, or would it be a separate development?
It's, the build zones would all be out of Raccoon Creek.
Okay, so it wouldn't fall under those design criteria then?
I'm sorry,
It would fall outside the design criteria
Yes,
for
that's correct.
Yes.
Raccoon Creek? Okay.
but inside the cities, SR.
Sure.
District.
Thanks.
I am Rita Panicky. I live at 365 Buena Vista, which is also Lot 1 in Raccoon Creek Estates. I wanted to make 2 points about the cohesiveness of our neighborhood. The first I want to say is there is not a single home in Raccoon Creek Estates that faces a home that is not part of our neighborhood. So these homes will face Raccoon Creek Estate homes. They're going to build there, we know that. But for cohesiveness, what I wanted to talk about is we had a lot of deed restrictions. We know those are deed restrictions. They will not fall to him. But John knows the deed restrictions because when we bought our homes, we submitted our plans to John for design review for our neighborhood. And so it feels like it doesn't sit well with us that he's going to come in and build something that gives the appearance of our neighborhood that doesn't look like our neighborhood. And having those lots be smaller than our lots, it's what Cheryl said. It changes comp values in the neighborhood. So our hope is SR1. We know that it's going to be built. That's where it's at. We worry about safety. We also worry about the neighborhood and what it looks like and what it does to our property values. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Rob Groy. I live at 108 Benedict Drive. Thank you for being open and honest with your future plans, and thank you all for allowing us to talk about, the future development and the intention of what's going on. My profession is civil engineering. I've been a registered professional civil engineer in the state of Ohio and Virginia for over 20 years now. I'm not claiming any expertise here. I am giving you maybe some other things to consider. Because when you look at aerial images, you can draw lines on a map and you can fit things in there. But when you actually go out there and see the grade change, it gives you a little different perspective. I could see why it was initially 2 lots, because when you go out there, it kind of naturally fits with the landscape, the 2 lots there. We talked about the grade change. When you come around the corner and the grade change that goes up and then comes back down, but also there's significant grade change from the edge of pavement to the back of the right-of-way. That could also cause some drainage, stormwater runoff that could be a challenge when trying to put 3 driveways, 3 homes on that parcel as opposed to 2 lots on that parcel. And another thing, my house, 108 Benedict Drive, I walk out of my drive, off my front porch, and what do I see? I see 3 lots. I got a lot in front of my house, got another lot on my, and then another lot that straddles my lot. But that's different. So, those 3 lots are coming down the hill. You got 1, 2, 3 homes there. You got a stop sign, and then so anyone approaching Buena Vista, Benedict Drive, they're going to turn on Benedict Drive, their property, and you got a stop sign, and so it's good clear. Whereas this area is not that way. They mentioned it, a 90-degree turn. You're going up a hill, down a hill, and so those are other things to consider when making the decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Come on down.
Evening, my name is Bo Reimers. Don't know if I need that. 404 Buena Vista. I'm just going to kind of echo on some things, especially that Maureen brought up regarding that line of sight in the walk that just dawned on me all of a sudden, because my wife and I walk that every morning about 5 o'clock in the morning. And it's absolutely correct. Once you're going, because we go clockwise, I guess we could go the other way, but it's the same way. Once you go down in front of these would-be 3 lots, it takes a 90-degree turn, and there's like a big puddle right on the corner, and right on the corner immediately. And we're dodging cars because that's a cut-through. That whole neighborhood is a frequent cut-through to Edwards. And so that is an issue. I do see that, and I could just see somebody going into the gas line, and then it's curtains. So that's kind of an issue, definitely, as far as a number. And I can only imagine somebody up here on the 3 driveways going to work, going that way, maybe being in a hurry, they're closer to it. It's just 3 more driveways for us to have to dodge as we're walking the dog, with people cutting through there, especially at ODARP 30. So that is a concern. I just wanted to raise that. The other issue too, any kind of mediation situation, I think the solution a lot of mediators would look at and say is SR1, where you end up splitting the baby, nobody's happy, but it would really accentuate, minimize safety concerns, maximize the aesthetic properties for the neighborhood that everyone is obviously concerned about. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Any other public comments on this issue? All right, we will go ahead and close public comment. Let's bring it back to the commission. Does anybody have any questions or comments that they'd like to address?
Is staff able to give some details with respect to the city's ability or inability to be a part of a discussion with respect to home placement on a lot, provided that it falls within the
Your time's up.
applicable setback parameters? So talking about, as it's been brought up tonight, driveway placement, line of sight. I know from a commercial standpoint, those are conditions that we've brought up before, specifically Johnstown Point with respect to their ingress and egress on 62 at that rise, and having a traffic study done there to ensure that there's enough line of sight.
Appropriate that if this is ultimately approved and the applicant moves forward in splitting those lots, that at the time when that lot split or the minor plat, whatever it's called, is submitted to the city for their review, that a careful look is taken to make sure that there is sufficient space, as there should be, on that first lot to make sure that the 30-foot setback won't become a major encroachment into any sort of sightlines or anything like that. I don't know the best methodology to achieve that. I don't know if some sort of, a traffic study is not the right term, but some sort of an engineer would have to, a roadway engineer would have to look at that basically for what their best guidance would be on site distances and triangles based on the angle and tightness of the radius of the curb, based on the speed limit, all of those things. I'm not qualified to do that, but there are lots of people in Central Ohio that could do that. But I would say I would not let that impact your decision on the zoning designation, because again, something could be built on those lots today. It might not be 3 homes, it may only be 2, but something could be built. So again, this is a request for the rezoning. We're not dealing with a roadway reconstruction issue or thing like that. So
Totally understood. It was more for education.
Absolutely.
Since the comment was brought up several times. But,
I'll give you a stab. 905.04, restrictions and constructions, identifies curb cuts. So if you want to, if you're bored tonight.
curb cuts does fall under the
that.
purview of the city manager.
Right.
To be
Or
able
just
to approve.
designee, which I would designate an
Yeah.
engineer, because as Trevor said, neither I am qualified to do an engineering study on
But the
it.
point is, it would come across your table.
It
And
would.
then there would be a consideration relative to the facts that you have in front of you about where that curb cut is placed and relative warrants that would permit it to be there or persuade for a different placement. That's what I was getting at. It's just educating on how the city fits within that conversation, because we all know that there are property rights for property owner to develop property as they see fit, but there's also restrictions and ways that the city has, say, within that, in consideration of public safety, health and welfare, et cetera. So that's fair. And Mr. Houston, thank you for providing that. I think it's a great illustration on that line of sight, so I appreciate the due diligence.
The answer?
I'm sorry?
I understand you were trying to clarify some of our questions, but I'm not sure what.
Is 905.04, restrictions and constructions. So that has some meat in there that is referenced for whenever a curb cut can be deemed appropriate, or there's also provisions in here that reference safety and well-being. There's a lot of variety of words that are used, but it's not overly burdensome to kind of walk through, but is.
Generally speaking, curb cut meaning when a driveway is put in place, you
correct.
could have someone look at it to say, is that a safety hazard or no? Is that-
Correct. It says limiting the construction of a driveway approach / curb cuts to only one public street or way where the premises to which the permit applies abuts more than one public street, or that's just one example. So there's a list of provisions that it has to meet, and that an engineer would then go through and say whether it deems it appropriate or safe. I'm not able to do that. Trevor's not able to do that. We would consult with some type of engineering. 2 entry points. There's some references given in here for that. So.
And if I may quickly, Ben's question, and correct me if I'm wrong, was, will the city get another opportunity to review where those curb cuts are? The answer is yes, they will, because the city is responsible for reviewing those locations.
If I could make a point, there is no curb and gutter on that street.
I was gonna say curb cuts in this respect mean driveway
Driveway
placement,
access. Driveway access.
That's a
Correct.
relative term here.
tire tracks. Yeah.
All right.
What
I'm not
could,
gonna say whether or not it's much smaller, but you would be able to build to the UR1 zoning standard today.
UR1's more similar to like New Edition over there. I think that's UR1, isn't it?
So the UR1 would be similar to the properties to the east and south of.
Well, yeah, I guess they are all UR1. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I'm just hung up on compatibility. The criteria for review, 113706. The relationship to the amendment of the public health, safety, and general welfare, I mean, it meets that. Affects the proposed amendment on access and traffic flow. Meets that relationship of topography to the intended use or to its implications. It meets that, and a lot of these two are within the scope of what would be a next step, in which case the city would be involved, like we talked about curb cuts, et cetera. Relationship proposed use to the adequacy of available services and to general expansion plans. Services will be met here. The part that's hanging me up is B, which is compatibility of the proposed amendment to the adjacent land use and adjacent zoning and to the appropriate plans for the area. That's the one that's hanging me up. And then what I were on the previous application and still maintains here as highest and best use for this space. As we talk about any use for any particular parcel within the city.
Where I'm hung up is on the safety piece and on the financial welfare. When I think welfare, I think, we said this last time, if my house were across the street, I would want something similar. It is going to be different because I think those lots across the street are even bigger than the half acre, right? I'm just eyeballing that, but I'm not sure. But if I'm John, I want 3 or 4 lots. So I see both perspectives.
I'll just
But
point
I-
out that the frontage on these lots are compatible with most of that neighborhood. There's some that are smaller than 93, I believe. A lot of them are in the range, not the ones directly across the street, but frontage-wise, it's not that far off.
But size-wise, for the home size, would be smaller.
It makes it
Yeah,
tough
there is,
because,
so that's the only point. It does match in that regard, but not other regards. I would agree with you.
it makes it tough because you're gonna get a similar product from the road with a similar setback, side setback, all of that stuff, but it does allow, and this is what I always say with zoning, it's interesting. We all know John, so it's different, but if it was a builder from out of town, would you feel as comfortable? So it's a little bit different. Have this go SR1, and then
I would not recommend that.
It will have to have sidewalks, right?
No, it's not a public street.
it's a private street.
We went through this last time.
Oh, it was dedicated.
Has been
Yeah.
dedicated, so there would be a sidewalk requirement under section.
So that would alleviate some of the safety concerns possibly.
Well, keep in mind, it's only gonna be a sidewalk in front of those 3 lots
Right.
unless the city ponies up the money to put in the rest of it.
Right.
But there's precedence for that before. We've homes on
There is,
North
yeah.
Oregon.
We could waive it.
It's the same way.
Their front yard would be Benedict Drive of these new lots.
Right, but what you're saying, if they extended the sidewalk beyond this, what this development is.
We weren't talking about that yet. We wouldn't be able to require that, for sure.
Correct.
Sorry.
So you would just have a section of sidewalk in front of those 3 homes?
Yep.
Well, I was just going over what this meant. Would be a later step in the process, but,
We gave variance on that houses on Grafton Creek that border Edwards because of the elevation there. There was no place to put a sidewalk.
Yeah.
So they
That's
allowed
correct.
the builders there, or the owners there to.
3 years ago, I think it was, something like that.
Sorry.
I think it was about 3 years ago when that variance happened, yeah.
There's a hill, and much as I want sidewalk, it will
All right.
never connect anywhere.
well, if we are,
Anyone have any conditions?
circle back to Sean, and if you guys have if you have a stance, a recommendation up or down.
The only thing I was gonna say is, it's a recommendation to council. I don't know that a condition situation would be legally viable.
for a lot.
So it's a recommendation, so it's either recommend to approve, recommend to deny. I don't know that a
Oh, it's
condition.
happened before.
Yeah, I'm not saying it hadn't happened, I'm just saying
Yeah.
what's legal, so.
I want to just state this for the record, yeah, it may have happened in the past, but I do not support, and I do not believe you all should support conditional rezonings, because that deviates from what the purpose of a zoning code is.
I concur. That's the only statement.
Well, good thing we don't have any conditions here. So I will make a motion to approve the application as submitted.
Do you have a second? Sorry, Christian. So roll call, Jesse Cobble.
Yes.
Ryan Green,
Yes.
Ben Lee.
No.
Kristen Hurst.
No.
Motion fails.
So it fails because it tied.
Correct. So the
All right.
recommendation to council will be a denial.
I don't know if this is protocol here, but in the past, I generally ask the P&Z members that voted no, provide some recommendation, just so that council has an understanding of where you were coming from. I found that it generally helps them kind of at least understand why there were a split vote. So that's totally up to you, but that is something that.
Like the Supreme Court and the dissenting vote.
So I can share mine, would be the safety concerns that the residents brought up, the financial welfare of the residents around there, we talked about it last time, I think when you turn that corner from turn the corner on Benedict, it does seem like you're coming into the Raccoon Creek Estates development, and it seems aesthetically the right thing to do to keep them similar as much as you can. And SR1 lots would do that. SR2 steps it down a notch. The homes may be pretty. I know John does good things with homes, but SR1 makes it a little bit closer to what's there. That's
Yeah,
all.
for me, compatibility, I think, still continued to stick out, but I think it continues to circle back with safety as well. The fewer driveways, the better, knowing that that space is zoned for residential. I continue to feel the intended use was for a higher zoning classification than an SR2 or a UR1. If you look at highest and best use for that land area in totality at the time that the original part of Benedict and Buena Vista were developed, that may have been the highest and best use. You look at what's back there for Raccoon Creek right now, current day, that looks to be highest and best use. And from a compatibility standpoint, it makes more sense to maintain that highest and best use and not look at doing some kind of transitional zoning, even though it's not defined as spot zoning. It is an SR2 in the middle of a UR1 and an SR1. So regardless of its compatibility on either side and a meet in the middle, it still feels like a one-off in that space.
We can move on to item number 7 on our agenda, other business. Does anybody have any other business not on the agenda that they would like to address tonight?
I only have one piece, but I'll wait unless you want me
Go
to.
ahead, start us off.
All right, so been in some communication with Kyle from MKSK just today. Want to float a date out there to the board. It's not on our regularly scheduled meeting. It is somewhat intentional, and I'm talking about just a discussion with the comprehensive plan. So a date has been floated out next Wednesday, May 1st. It's Eager, 6 o'clock, time frame. I see Ben shaking heads in the affirmative of a 6, but not a 5. So
I can put my comments in online, but I'm out of town.
you'll be out of town, okay. And this is a tentative, so it may come back and say, this doesn't work for their.
I know council wants to pass this, but
It's Tuesday, right?
Is this a special P&Z meeting?
it's
Is
Tuesday,
that
but that'll
what's
be the
going on
week
here?
before.
It would be a special
Yeah.
planning and zoning meeting, correct?
Okay.
Yeah. Because that was one of the various reasons why at the last meeting of council, they didn't pass it, was because zoning hadn't heard anything about it yet.
I can make it work. If I have a soccer practice at 5:30, 6:30, I can leave a little early because I'm assistant coach, but if we can do it at 6:30,
would
that's
help.
better than for me.
That feedback's exactly what we're looking for. So I hear Ben being agreeable to after 6, so a 6:30 start time.
Oh, it's in my calendar at 6.
Oh, well,
I mean, I get the.
it's at 6.
I get the benefit of getting to weigh in at council, so if it works for you guys.
We can check with your boss.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's giving the shaking the head, no, it's not happening.
Oh, okay.
No more meetings for Ryan.
6:30.
She's saying no. Okay.
Okay.
I get the benefit of getting a second time to weigh in on it, so if it's, you
That's
guys
true.
can meet.
Okay. So what I will tell Kyle and his team is, I've got 2 members that would definitively be there. I'll check with Steve to see what his availability is.
And I
I'm
don't
not trying
think
to
we
pry
were,
too hard, but is
we
there a
weren't
different
gonna,
date that week?
we weren't actually gonna vote on anything anyway. It was more of just a presentation and review process, right? So if somebody, I
I
don't.
think
I
we
don't-
definitely had the presentation, because everybody got the printed copies. So I think everybody's
I guess-
had a chance to go through
I've
it.
read it, I just have to put
To
my
review
comments
as a
in.
group, though, is important, because, I mean, obviously, I think we'd all like to collectively.
But I think it's
discuss.
like, if you're gone, I didn't, like, my analysis, remembrance of the council wasn't that we make a vote to recommend, it was just kind of a airing for feedback and, to try
Yeah,
to, communicate and to the public a little bit and,
Right. Yeah,
get
I would.
I think you
everybody
captured
behind it,
that well.
right?
I think it is
So-
going to be not a line by line, but a more of a
General
offer
concept,
comments, and then
which is the
they
way.
take those feedbacks, they group them.
Please put comments in the link.
It's important to do that, but I believe in, and I think Ben would say I was correct on this. The last one that we did make a recommendation to council to approve.
And you can do that.
It doesn't hurt.
And I think we had a list of edits.
I guess that didn't hurt, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I hear Kristen saying she's available Monday, Tuesday. Is Tuesday a different evening that may work? And I can kick that over to Kyle, and they say that doesn't work in their schedule, but as an alternative on a Tuesday, and you're gonna get in trouble with Teresa, by the way, for doing that. This is the 5th Tuesday. It's sacred to staff. It's the only Tuesday.
Well, then don't change that just for me.
No,
Let them have their Tuesday.
I want public input, and I
can
want
do
your guys'
Tuesdays.
participation. So Tuesday is workable for Jesse. Ryan is a Tuesday. Oh, she gives the nod. Yes, you're available
Oh, yeah.
Tuesday. So just so you know, Tuesday you are available. And Ben, are you available Tuesday? So a Tuesday would be workable for a minimum 4 members.
Yeah.
Potentially Steve. I'll kick that back to Kyle and.
And quickly, if I may, Ben, thank you for putting your comments in. It does really help us. We want you to have the opportunity to discuss this as a group as well, but it really helps us tailor what we come prepared to discuss with you in depth. I mean, we wrote the plan based on the input that we received, so we're familiar with all of it. But if there are pieces that you all really want clarity on, it would really help us if we had those comments so that we can come with some like prepared responses and like be ready to give you what you need to make sure that you're comfortable with that document. So
Mine are all on Post-its right now.
take your time. If you have any issues with the link, let Sean or us know. We're happy to like accommodate how we can, but having those digitally really does help us speed up how quickly we can implement any changes.
Drop
on the
off your
back end.
Post-its if you
I
want.
want to make sure though that even if we post them in there, that we're not brushing over them, for.
No, that's
reviewing
fine. That's
together.
all right. Yeah, that's
'Cause,
not our
I mean, from what I saw, obviously, like some people go down to the level of grammar, right? So obviously, easy grammar, spelling,
Yeah, we don't
things
wanna
like
talk about that in policy.
Change that. But high level concepts, I want to have a broader debate
Sure.
of like, okay, why have we created this or why have we gotten rid of this? I want to make sure that we're not losing that debate amongst our peers.
No, absolutely. I think that's
So-
great, and I think that documenting those concerns and allowing us a little bit of time to at least know what we're walking into will help us facilitate your all's conversation
I think
to
that's
be more
fine.
productive.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay. Thursday, I'll toss that out there since this is really much easier than back and forth emails. Thursday availability, you will be out
I'm
of
gone
town.
Wednesday to Sunday.
Okay,
You're talking Thursday the 2nd?
yes.
Fortunate for you, I am free.
Oh, so is it 6 o'clock on Thursday?
I need
According to Ben,
friends.
he's put it
I
in
got
the
nothing
calendar.
going on.
Wait, I thought we just did the.
Well, Tuesday, I've got to check with MKSK. I want to give them a variety. They
So this
pitched
is
out
a
Wednesday.
secondary date.
Well, yes. Wednesday was their, I believe, pitch.
Preferred.
Monday, Tuesday are my best days. Wednesday, Thursday are my worst days.
Okay. Jesse, Thursday?
Uh,
Jesse's a no on Thursday. Is Ryan free Thursday?
Come on.
She gave a smile, so I'm not sure how to interpret that. I will let
For the
Ryan
record,
answer.
I've written off Tuesdays for the rest of my life. So.
That's what. Yeah, the Tuesdays are always earmarked to be here in some capacity. So,
Okay.
so Monday, Tuesday is always here in some capacity.
Tuesday is the preferred. I will lean
Yeah.
heavily on Kyle. Thursday, it sounds like Jesse's gonna not be able to
I have an
attend.
orientation for my new yacht
Wednesday,
club.
Thursday are when I shoehorn everything else into.
So Ryan's a no
Awesome.
on Thursday.
Yeah.
And then Ben is a yes, and then could be
Just sounds
Steve,
cool.
so it could be just you and Steve on Thursday. No, if it comes down to Thursday, we'll pivot to the following week after that, so.
Friday, everyone will hate, but honestly, Friday's better for me than Wednesday, Thursday. But I don't think anybody wants to be
What
here
are
on
you
Friday.
doing? What are you
That's what
doing?
I'm being honest.
Sean's wife might kill us
Honest feedback.
Friday.
I don't do anything on Friday, I don't have a life, so, except for my obligations to go suffer in the freezing cold or rainy weekends to camp in a tent, I'm obligated to that, so, and you can get me out of those if you want, so I'm okay with that, so, yeah. Other than that, I'll let them know the information and feedback. We'll see what Tuesday comes up with. If not, it may be a Wednesday with 3 members. Thursday seems like it's a hard no. And then Ryan's preferred date would be a Friday. He'll be bringing
He'll be
beverages
solo.
and pizza by himself. So, okay, that's all I have for other business.
All right.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
It'd be like COVID when I
Work
volunteered.
away.
It'd be like COVID when I volunteered to sit here by myself. Just so we could have meetings. I was like, I will be here by myself. Everybody else can be online. I was like, we can't not have meetings. Like, the world can't stop.
Okay.
Honestly, I think COVID were our best meetings because everybody was like available online.
All our COVID meetings updating code.
But then there were HOAs who ended up getting together around one computer, and that kind of defeated the purpose.
I don't
All
want
for
to talk
naught.
about updating the code anymore.
All for naught. I'm
John,
kind of glad
are you
we don't
back
have to
for
do that
the
anymore,
summer
to be
from
honest with you.
Florida?
I'm gonna outsource.
Are you back for the summer from Florida? Are you done? Or do you go back and
In
forth?
January.
What's that?
I just spent summer January,
Oh, okay.
and then Arizona.
Get all the warmth in so you don't freeze. That's good. What's going on, huh? Yeah.
I'll be Teresa again.
Oh, thank you. I'll get this to Sean. It's an extra one.
Do it.
Great job. Your write-ups are great.
Still goes before council. Yeah, I'm hoping we're gonna have to.
No, it really is good. All the information is like
Yeah,
very helpful information.
Yeah,
Very good. It is. I want to tell Sean they need to print it on double-sided. I was like, this is too hard to manage. And I'm like,